Let's take a look at practice quiz for standard 4 on three-dimensional figures. Number 1 says find the surface area of the figures below. Then we want to figure out which two figures have the same surface area and how much does the other figure differ from the figures that have the same surface area. So for this first figure, I see that it's a rectangular prism. So for prisms, we find surface area by saying 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. So 2 times the area of the base, which I see would be 6 times 6, plus the perimeter of the base, which would be to multiply 6 times 4 or add it up 4 times. Either way would give me the same thing. And then the height was the 22. So then I would need to type all that in the calculator and I would be able to tell that this first rectangular prism has a surface area of 600 square inches. For the next figure, we would follow the same formula because it's still a prism. So we need to find 2 times the area of the base again, plus the perimeter of the base times the height. So 2 times the area of the base, which in this case is 10 times 10, plus the perimeter of the base, which I can see would be 10 4 times, which would be 40, times the height, which is also 10. So then I type all that in the calculator, and I see that the surface area is 600 square inches. So I noticed that those two figures have the same surface area. So I would answer the first part of this question as figure A and B have the same surface area. But then I need to find the third one to answer the last question. So once again, my formula is 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. So that would be 2 times the area of this base, which is 18 times 11, plus the perimeter of the base. And it's a rectangle, so I have 2 sides that are 18 plus 2 sides that are 11. And that would give me the perimeter of the base times the height, which was the 4. Then you type all of that in the calculator and you get 628 square inches. So to answer the last part of this question, it said how much does the figure differ from the figures that have the same? So that would be the 628 square inches minus the 600 square inches. The difference would be 28 square inches. All right, let's look at number 2. Leah made 2 candles in the shape of a cylinder. The first candle is 15 centimeters high and 8 centimeters wide. The second candle is 5 centimeters higher but has the same width as the first candle. How much additional wax was needed to make the taller candle? So I like to draw it out to see what they're talking about. So she said the first candle, and it's in the shape of a cylinder, was 15 centimeters high and 8 centimeters wide. And then the next candle was the same width, but it was taller by 5 centimeters. So I know that would be 20 centimeters tall now and still 8 centimeters wide. So then I need to find the volume because that's how much wax would be needed to fill the cylinder to make the candle. So volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. So that would be pi, and then radius in this case would need to be half of the 8 that they gave me. So the radius is 4. So pi times 4 squared times the height, which is 15, would give me a volume of 240 pi, or as a decimal, it would be 753.98 cubic centimeters. So for the next candle that's taller, I still need to fill in pi r squared times the height, and that would be pi. The radius would stay 4 because that hasn't changed, but the height is now taller. It's equal to 20. And then the total volume for the second candle is 320 pi, or 1005.31 cubic inches. So they asked how much additional wax is needed. So we've got to take the bigger candle and subtract the smaller candle volume to figure that out. So I could say 320 pi minus 240 pi would be 80 pi, or in decimal terms, it would be 251 68.33 cubic centimeters of wax. So that is my final answer for number 2. 3 says, if the volume of a sphere is 288 cubic inches, what is the radius of the sphere? So our volume of a sphere formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. And they gave us the volume is 288. So I need to plug that in and solve this for the radius. So if I want to get rid of the 4/3, I can multiply by the reciprocal, or I can multiply by 3 and then divide by 4. Either way would work. So if I want to do it in one step, I could take the reciprocal of 4/3, and that helps me to get rid of the 4/3. And then I can type 3/4 of 288 into my calculator, and I get 216. So then I could divide both sides by pi, and I would get 68.75 equals the radius cubed. Then to get rid of a cube, you have to take the cube root of both sides. So in Desmos, let me show you where that button is. Let's see. If I want to take the cube root, I've just got to go to the functions menu and go to the bottom. And there's the one in the middle at the bottom that has a little nth root. And then you can put the cube root outside and whatever number you need underneath. So 68.75 would give me about 4.09 or about 4.1 for my radius. So that's it for number 3. Number 4 says find the volume of the composite figure. So this composite figure is made of 2 different 3D shapes. We've got the bottom, which looks like a box. So let's start with that one. The volume of a rectangular prism or a box is just what it's always been, length times width times height. So let's say 14 times 9 times 8 would give me the volume of my rectangular prism, which is 1,008 cubic inches. Then I notice the top of the figure is a prism with a triangular base. So notice like the base of that prism is in the shape of a triangle. So the volume of any prism we could figure out by saying area of the base times the height. But the base in this case is a triangle, and the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2. So the base of my triangle is 14. The height of my triangle is the 5. So I could say 1/2 base, which is 14, height, which is 5, but then times the height of the prism. And the height of this prism is actually, grab another color, is actually this side over here that's 9, because this prism is laying on its side right now. And so it takes some imagination to see that like the height of it is actually that side right there. So then we calculate the volume of that triangular prism, which is 315 cubic inches. But then to get the final answer, you just have to show that you add all of that together. So 1,008 plus 315 would give me 1,323 cubic inches. All right, last but not least, we have a rotation of a 2D shape to make a 3D object. So what figure is created when the figure below is rotated around the axis? So if you can imagine and visualize this rotating around, it's going to make a cone. And then that's all you would have to say for this question, is what shape is created. And it should be a 3-dimensional shape that you're naming. Okay, so that's it for practice quiz.